In Washington today, Republicans continue to try to push the Graham Cassidy bill to repeal Obamacare. Last night on his show, Jimmy Kimmel told his audience that one of the co-sponsors of the bill, Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, lied to Jimmy Kimmel's face when he said, Senator Cassidy said that he would not support a bill that would cause anyone to lose health care coverage.
Now, I don't know what happened to Bill Cassidy, but when he was on this publicity tour, he listed his demands for a health care bill very clearly. These were his words. He said he wants coverage for all, no discrimination based on pre-existing conditions, lower premiums for middle-class families, and no lifetime caps. And guess what? The new bill does none of those things. So not only did Bill Cassidy fail the Jimmy Kimmel test, he failed the Bill Cassidy test. He failed his own test. And this guy, Bill Cassidy, just lied right to my face.
Tonight, President Trump tweeted in Senator Cassidy's defense, saying, Senator Dr. Bill Cassidy is a class act who really cares about people and their health care. He doesn't lie, just wants to help people. So, a proven liar says that Bill Cassidy doesn't lie, just wants to help people. And Jimmy Kimmel says that he lied to my face. So, who are you going to believe? The Graham Cassidy bill followed the president to the United Nations today.
Is Graham Cassidy going to pass?
I think it has a very good chance. It has tremendous support from Republicans. Certainly, we're at 47 or 48 already senators, and a lot of others are looking at it very positively. I think there's tremendous support for it. I think it's actually much better than the previous shot, which was very sadly let down.
Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, a member of the Senate Finance Committee that will have one hearing on the bill next week, did not try to justify the bill today on its substance. Senator Grassley said, you know, I could maybe give you 10 reasons why this bill shouldn't be considered, but Republicans campaigned on this so often that you have a responsibility to carry out what you said in the campaign. That's pretty much as much of a reason as the substance of the bill. Senator Grassley was asked if there were enough votes to pass the bill in the Senate, and he said, no. I think we're 1 or 2 votes short, and I don't see those other 1 or 2 votes coming. I hope I'm wrong. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's spokesperson released a statement today saying it is Senator McConnell's intention to bring the Graham Cassidy bill to the Senate floor next week. Today, another Republican governor of a state that would take a big loss from the bill came out against it. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie said, I oppose Graham Cassidy because it is too injurious to the people of New Jersey. I'm certainly not going to support a bill that takes nearly $4 billion from people in the state. Jimmy Kimmel has asked Senator Cassidy to stop using his name to justify his legislation, using Jimmy Kimmel's name to justify the legislation. But here's what happened when Kasie Hunt asked Senator Cassidy about that today.
Senator Cassidy, can I just ask you one question?
Yes.
Do you think that this legislation passes the Jimmy Kimmel test?
Absolutely. There will be people in states like...
He called you a liar last night.
There was a personal attack, and I can't help that. But all I can say is that if you're in Texas or if you're in Maine and Virginia, Missouri, there'll be resources in your state that you've not had to provide you coverage, and we have protections for pre-existing conditions.
But states would be able to not cover people with pre-existing conditions.
Right. Where are you getting this garbage?
Well,
Where are you getting this garbage? That's complete garbage.
If they got
The
a waiver.
legislation specifically says that the state applying for a waiver would have to ensure that those with pre-existing conditions would have access to adequate and affordable coverage.
What does affordable mean?
The garbage that Senator Graham was angrily accusing Kasie Hunt of talking about is in the Graham Cassidy bill. Under the current law, the Affordable Care Act provides a national guarantee to everyone in the United States that they cannot be denied insurance because of pre-existing conditions. The Graham Cassidy bill would leave that issue to the states. Some states would surely continue to require coverage for pre-existing conditions, but some states would not. And any state could drop that coverage at any time. There would be no federal guarantee left. Tonight, the president tweeted, I would not sign, Graham Cassidy, if it did not include coverage of pre-existing conditions. It does, exclamation point. A great bill, repeal and replace. One thing all Republicans have agreed on in their leaks to the press about their discussions with the president on health care is that he does not have any idea what is in any of the health care legislation that's been considered by the Congress this year. Today, President Obama said this.
When I see people trying to undo that hard-won progress for the 50th or 60th time with bills that would raise costs or reduce coverage or roll back protections for older Americans or people with pre-existing conditions, the cancer survivor, the expecting mom, or the child with autism or asthma, for whom coverage once again would be almost unattainable, it is aggravating. And all of this being done without any demonstrable economic or actuarial or plain common sense rationale, it frustrates.
We are awaiting President Obama's tweeted response to that. Joining us now is Howard Dean, a medical doctor, former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and an MSNBC political analyst. Also joining us, Julie Rovner, chief Washington correspondent at Kaiser Health News, and Neera Tanden, president of the Center for American Progress, and she was an advisor on the Affordable Care Act when the Obama administration was working on it. And Governor Dean, I just want to talk to you, first of all, as a politician. You're in this situation. You've been on all those kinds of shows like Jimmy Kimmel's. A politician on a show like that makes a certain promise. Does that politician think he's going to be able to break that promise publicly and hear nothing from Jimmy Kimmel?
Lawrence, these guys think they can get away with anything. The head guy lies every day, and everybody in America believes that he lies every day. Now he's vouching for somebody. I don't know Bill Cassidy. I've never met him. But he is lying about this bill. You explained the pre-existing conditions. What they can do, however, is charge you as much as they want. So effectively, pre-existing conditions are gone. Health care is gone. This is nonsense. This is a ridiculous bill. It's a hard right bill. I don't think Lindsey Graham has any idea what's in this bill. He ought to stick to foreign policy and stop this crap.
Julie Rovner, you'll be our nonpartisan referee here. The closest thing we have, you're the closest thing we have to the CBO in this discussion. On the Jimmy Kimmel versus Cassidy fight, how do you see it?
Well, it's mostly a semantic fight. I think that the senators are right when they say there is language in the bill that seeks to protect pre-existing conditions, but there's other language in the bill that completely undermines them. So you can waive the essential health benefits, the required benefits, and you can charge people more. So that way you can offer people with pre-existing condition coverage that doesn't include what they need and charge them things that they can't afford, even though there is technically language in the bill that seeks to say you'll protect people with pre-existing conditions.
And Neera, one of the things that we've seen around the country is that different states have what we could call different senses of responsibility about how much coverage should they be guaranteeing to people. And so once you remove this national guarantee that the Affordable Care Act has, then sure, California, New York, and states, Governor Dean's Vermont, some of these states will continue to do some of the things they're doing under that, but a lot of states won't, and they will have much less money to try to do it.
Look, there'll be several states that drop pre-existing conditions, and I can't believe we're in a world where we can say this, but we have senators who either don't know what's in their bill or they are lying through their teeth about what's in their bill. And I have to say, it's a Kafkaesque situation we're in, but you cannot rely on what Lindsey Graham has said. And either, he staked his reputation on a bill that he does not understand, or he's just blatantly lying. No one in America thinks that if you're charged $1 million for pre-existing conditions, protections, or for access to cancer, that's a protection. Nobody thinks that. That's not semantic. That's just saying they're not protecting pre-existing conditions. So the reality of this is more and more information is coming out about this legislation. From insurers to the AARP to hospitals, every stakeholder group opposes this. Everyone involved in the healthcare system, everyone involved in protecting people is against this legislation. We now have new data that shows that states are going to lose money. Arizona, $11 billion. Ohio, $9 billion. Alaska, $1 billion. Hundreds of thousands of people thrown off their coverage. 32 million in all when this bill is said and done. And there's no argument, and this is the most conservative bill. There's no argument in favor of it, and that is why they are misleading the American people. Because really, there is no policy argument behind this legislation, which is to the right of every other version.
Ellen DeGeneres tweeted today, "When Jimmy says call, I call. So should you. I love you, Jimmy Kimmel." And then she gave the Senate phone number there. And I just want to go to a report here of that the AP has tonight of an overheard phone call of Lindsey Graham at the airport or an airplane, about to get on an airplane. And it's interpreted as talking to John McCain because he's talking about Arizona. But it's very clear in that phone call, just to have little bits of it, that Lindsey Graham is not talking to someone who is yet, anyway, voting for this bill. And Howard Dean, if you're one of the Republican senators who voted against the last Republican attempt, what is in here for you to vote for this one now?
Absolutely nothing. You know, Cassidy himself is going to cost the taxpayers of Louisiana $2 billion. Louisiana is going to lose money. Shelley Moore Capito, the senator from West Virginia, she can't vote for this bill. The billions of dollars is going to come out of one of the poorest states in the country if this bill gets passed. I don't believe Lisa Murkowski is going to vote for it. She and Susan Collins were given heroes welcomes when they went back to Alaska and Maine after they killed the last bill. They're not going to vote for this. This is far worse. This is going to really screw the governors. I can't believe Rob Portman's going to do this and take billions of dollars out of Ohio after his governor says not to do it. This bill is a sham, and you know why they're passing it? Because they want the money to give tax cuts to people like Donald Trump. That is what they've been trying to do all along. This is about taxes. This is not about health care. They don't give a damn about the health care of the people of the United States of America.
Let's listen to more of Casey Hunt's great reporting on the Hill today, this time talking to Senator Murkowski.
Are you ready to support it?
Nope.
Why not?
Because I am doing the due diligence that I committed to doing yesterday. What I have had an opportunity to do is to sit down with my team, who has sat down with HHS, and we are ferreting out lots of numbers, and we're continuing to do that.
And Julie Rovner, there's been some speculation today that they might be able to shoehorn something into this bill specifically for Alaska to try to get Senator Murkowski's vote. Do you see an opening for that?
Well, my understanding is that the money in there for Alaska was actually in the last version that she didn't vote for. But they are definitely doing everything that they can to get those last couple of votes that they need to get them to the 50. And remember, they only have until next Saturday. That's when the budget instructions expire. They won't be able to do it with 50 votes after that. So they're on a very tight timeline, which may be serving them well. They may be able to convince some of these senators that this is literally their last chance to do this, at least for this year. And some of them are concerned about, the complaints they're getting from donors who are saying, you guys can't seem to get anything done. So this is a chance to do something, and many of them don't actually care what it is that they're doing.
When you defeat a bill by one vote in the Senate, every vote is a decisive vote. But the most dramatic vote cast last time was by John McCain. And this is what he told Politico today. Nothing has changed. If McConnell wants to put it on the floor, that's up to McConnell. I am the same as I was before. I want the regular order. Asked if that means he's a no vote, McCain said, that means I want the regular order. It means I want the regular order. And Neera Tanden, what does that mean?
Well, if this is not regular order, let me just say again, there is not going to be a CBO score. There's not going to be an official referee. Now, we do have data points, like billions of dollars will be lost by Arizona and Alaska and other states. But there's no regular order for this. There's no markup. This is just going to be jammed through, as Julie said. Let me say, there are 3 people who held out before, but there were a lot of people who made statements who said they got something in the past legislation that was important. I didn't think it was very real, but Rob Portman, Shelley Moore Capito both talked about opioid funding, which they received. That's not even in this bill. Now people who made claims and statements before, they're not even getting little provisions, and they're willing to do this just for politics. They see a political problem, not a healthcare problem, a political problem. And I think that's why Americans are outraged and are calling. And there's just a few more days left to make your calls, so please call tomorrow.
Well, we'll see what Jimmy Kimmel says tonight. Neera Tanden, Howard Dean, Julie Rovner, thank you all for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.